Ernest Holmes wrote, "All of your work begins and ends in your consciousness because mind is all there is." I want you to think of yourself as in the mind, in this mind. Don't think of this mind as being in you. Rather, think of yourself as a center in this mind. Of course, this mind flows through you, but think of yourself as a center in it. We are surrounded by a psychic life, a subjective, creative, conscious, receptive, neutral, and plastic force which receives the impress of our thought always and has no alternative. So let us now speak our affirmation together with conviction. I walk the path of integrity. I listen deeply within, aligning with the perfection and wholeness of God, letting the light of God illuminate my path and make straight the way before me. I see a great vision of my life coming into view. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Linda.
So this wonderful, beautiful year of 2019 is dedicated to spirituality in action. This is where the rubber meets the road. We have been studying, we have been contemplating, we have been doing our spiritual practice. We have been praying our prayers. And now is the time for us to ask, what is ours to do? So each month this year, we are exploring that. And this particular month is a month where we look at this quality called integrity, where we explore it, where we deepen into it. What does it mean? What does it mean to live in integrity? And the action step, there's an action step with each theme. And this one is be truthful in facts and motives. So integrity, the definition of integrity, the state of being whole and undivided. So what do you think of when you think of whole and undivided? The presence of God, right? And that one infinite universal whole that is omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient. That means everywhere in all of its magnificence, wonder, and glory. That means right here where we are, each one of us is the whole, complete, undivided presence of God. Think about that. That means we, in our essence, are whole, perfect, and complete, undivided. And then the word to integrate, which comes from that, means to combine one thing with another so that they become whole. So living in true spiritual integrity then means being conscious that we live, move, and have our being in one infinite universal mind, the mind of God. So when we're talking about mind with a capital M, we're talking about God, Spirit, the infinite Almighty. So this concept that Ernest Holmes is talking about, that think of ourselves as centers of divine operation in the one mind of God, is extremely important. Because if we think of God just within ourselves, and we do teach that, but if we think, oh, God is right here within me, without having the bigger context, we can still feel pretty small and alone and separate. So this bigger context is I am in the divine wholeness of God, and God is within me because there's no place where God is missing, right? So God is within me. Really brings us into that awareness of wholeness, integrity. And so our integrity then comes from living in conscious union with God, with the divine. So living in conscious awareness, and that means on a consistent basis, not just when we're doing our spiritual practice, but it means moment by moment and day by day. So yes, we're all going to have moments where we forget who we are and we get caught up in whatever's going on in our lives. But living in integrity means that we have a deep intention to keep coming back to that awareness of who we are and whose we are. Pure spirit, whole, perfect, and complete, and fully one integrated with the whole of life of God. So here's the thing that happens when we begin to live more in integrity, in this awareness of wholeness. How we show up in heavy traffic or when somebody cuts us off is the same as when we show up in spiritual community. It means we bring that same truth of who we are, the presence of love, the presence of peace, the presence of compassion wherever we go. So here's the thing, in times when we do feel alone, when we do feel victimized, when we do feel hopeless, we're simply forgetting who we are. We're simply forgetting for a moment. And that's okay. I mean, that's part of our human journey. And the answer to being whole again, or to feeling our wholeness again, is to come back to spiritual truth, which is what our beautiful form of prayer is, called spiritual mind treatment. It's an affirmative prayer where we simply tell ourselves the truth about God and the truth about who we are as individualized expressions of God. And we bring ourselves right back on track with living our lives in integrity. We're aware of that we're drawing upon a field of infinite possibilities from the universal mind. We're aware that we are being guided by the universal mind. And we are aware that we are using, every time we think, the wholeness of universal law that takes the impress of our thoughts and brings it into form. So I wanted to focus today. Let me see if I have some water. Just a second. I wanted to focus today on this topic of how God works through us, because it's a powerful way to live, to realize that we're not just here on our own little separate journeys, that we have a universal intelligence available that we can allow to work through us, the presence of God. There's a story, I think, that illustrates this so beautifully. There was a wealthy man who was bothered by severe eye pain. And so he went to all of the doctors and took loads of drugs and did everything he possibly could to get relief from the eye pain. And nothing happened. It still persisted. So he began to hear about this monk that was in the region whose specialty was healing. And so he went to the monk, and the monk told him this. He said, I want you to only focus on green, the color green. Wherever you are, only let your eyes rest on the color green. So the monk left, and the man ordered his servants to buy lots and lots of green paint and painted everything and poured it over everything, his entire estate, and so that his eyes would only land on the color green, and he was supposed to do this for a period of time. So anyway, the monk comes back and the servants are running toward him with cans of paint, ready to pour it all over him. And he says, stop, wait a minute. Wait a minute, what's going on here? And the man said, well, I'm doing as you instructed. And he said, you could have accomplished the same thing by just buying a pair of green eyeglasses. I love stories like this because they so beautifully illustrate how often we try to fix everything in our exterior world, right? When the place to start is within us, is to change our vision. So today I want to talk about visioning versus visualization, what the two are. Because we hear a lot about this, right? We hear a lot about creative visualization and how powerful it is and how it works. And we teach visioning here. And how does all that fit into the idea of God working through me? Well, visualization, it's good. I mean, it works. Um, Think of how it works, though. Usually with visualization, sometimes we go and we cut out magazines and we put on a poster board the things that we want in our lives. And what happens then is it's kind of an outside in process. We're finding something outside, we're putting it up, we're focusing on that, and then we do the inner work. It's fine. I mean, you will manifest things that way, but I believe there's a better way. And the better way is visioning. And the reason why visioning is so powerful is that it is really a process of going within in the silence, using the breath to go within, deepening into a state of silence, and then asking powerful questions, any type of guidance that you would like. Things like, universe, what's next for me? Or it could be, what is God's highest idea of, my life, or the highest idea of this project? Or what is my next project that is for my highest and best and the highest and best of all? Whatever your question is, those questions are a way to receive guidance from not just the conditioned mind or the outside world. It's a way to receive guidance from universal mind, the big mind, the great mind, the one undivided mind in which we live, move, and have our being. Visioning I love visioning. I've been doing visioning for years, and I have seen amazing things happen through the process of visioning in terms of people's lives and in terms of what shows up. A really good example is what's happened with our aesthetics team. Lisa and Candace have recently gotten together and done some visioning. And, there are all kinds of beautiful things that show up in our decor. And more to come because they just did it recently, right? And Sharon and I got together and did visioning around music ministry. And so things like the stage, the risers, and all of those things that support the music program is showing up. And, it'll continue to unfold.
Risen and extended.
Yes, that came out of visioning. That idea of putting a little extension so the keyboard was there and the choir could be out of the way of the screen so that everybody could see properly. The other thing that where visioning has been used in our community is once a year at least, and sometimes we've done it more often, we ask for what's next for the spiritual community. And we did that this last November. And what we heard was 4 areas for us to concentrate on. The first area related to music ministry, and that's why we're doing more visioning there. We heard aesthetics ministry, which is what Lisa and her team is all about. And we also heard the children, youth, and family ministry. And we've been knowing, there's been a knowing in us that that's really where we want to put some emphasis, because we know that in order not only to grow our community, but to assure the legacy of this beautiful teaching is continued, that a strong children, youth, and family ministry is very much an important part of it. The interesting thing that's happened is that we just recently had the convention for Centers for Spiritual Living, which is out in Golden, Colorado. That's the greater organization that we belong to. And from their visioning, one of the key things that they mentioned was the importance of what do we do to have our communities serve and support families, younger people. And so there's a whole program of ministry school, 35 and under. Anybody 35 and under who wants to go to ministry school through Centers for Spiritual Living gets tuition free as long as they serve for 3 years after they graduate. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a big deal because we're talking thousands of dollars. Thousands of dollars each year. And the other thing that's happening is they're talking about hiring a staff member at home office whose full job will be children, youth, and family ministry. You hadn't heard that, huh? Yeah. Yeah. So see, Danielle is a huge advocate of teen ministry, and we are so grateful to have her here in our community because she has been a strong driver behind the camps that are taking place, the teen camps, and the teen overnight that's going to take place here because of her experience of growing up in this spiritual tradition. Right, Danielle? Yeah. So, vision. Without vision, the people perish. Have you heard that before? Vision is so important. We do have a vision. If you want to know our big detailed vision, it's out on the board, out in the fellowship area. The board reads it, our board of trustees reads it before each one of our meetings to remind ourselves what our vision is. And we continue to do visioning. Visioning is an ongoing process to find out what's next. What's the next piece that we are to place our attention on of the vision? And visioning is not only something just for spiritual community, it's for your individual lives, for your businesses. Because when visioning is the cornerstone of whatever you do, you are truly living in spiritual integrity. Let's take a breath with that. So I'd like us all to just end with a beautiful affirmation. So just repeat after me. I live in spiritual integrity.
I live in spiritual integrity.
You know what? Let's stand up. Let's stand and let's stand in our spiritual power here. And you can put your arms up, you can put your hands on your hips, whatever it is, get into a place of power and say this after me. I live in spiritual integrity.
I live in spiritual integrity.
I allow my intuitive nature to align.
I allow my intuitive nature to align
with the perfection and wholeness
with the perfection and wholeness
of the universal mind of God.
of the universal mind of God.
I go within, ask for guidance, and allow a great vision of my life to come into view. And so it is. Amen. Woo!